Oh, oh, okay. I can start.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. So my presentation topic is OP and how its principle is implemented in JavaScript. So let's get started, I think. First of all, what is object-oriented programming? This is the paradigm based on a concept of objects. So the main idea of OP is that we have the structure of a program that mimics the real-life objects. So we have some concepts of it. How many? Originally, there are a lot of concepts, but nowadays, a lot of sources highlighted only 4 of them. And without them, we can call any programming language object-oriented. So let's view these 4 mysterious concepts. Firstly, we have encapsulation. The idea of in the encapsulation is that implementation should be visible to users, to us. Only we can access it through the accessors like getters, setters, and we can directly interfere into program by access directly to the data we have. So this is the encapsulation. Later, I will show you some examples in presentation and in code. Second one, we have inheritance. So we have objects. Objects are sometimes very similar with behavior or attributes. And if we share many common attributes, we can use inheritance to extract these shared attributes and behaviors into some separate instances, classes, as I may say. And this helps us to avoid some repeating and or writing the same code over and over. And the polymorphism, it extends this idea. The meaning of the word polymorphism, it's have many forms or many shapes. The polymorphisms give us a way to use some classes like as parent, but with no mixing some types. And children of these classes can also override some methods, some code, some implementation of a parent class. Later, I will with examples, I will show you how it's done, and it will be more understandable, I think. And last, we have abstraction. The idea behind this is that outside world will provided us with only insertional information about an object, for example, or a class. It should provide us only information relevant for us. For example, if you need a cattle site who sold some cattle, for example, you don't need to understand how physical process in boiling the water in this kettle works, about heat emission, how it works, etc., etc. For site, you need information, manufacturer, name, power settings, etc., etc. We need only these fields, no physics in our project. And this is the idea behind this principle. Later on, we now need to view how it works in our favorite language, JavaScript. It's not so simple as you think. First, JavaScript, what is it? It is class-based language? No, it's not. It is a prototype-based language. What is that? Prototype-based, in short, is have an object using template for creating another initial properties for a new object. And all types in JavaScript are chained down to one object prototype. This may refer to a prototype chain or chain of prototypes, someone calls in our. This is a concept that which explains why some objects based on our object have instances or methods of our objects and can access to them. So in this example, we have array 1, 2, 3. If have prototype array and can use their methods, for example, to string, but object prototype have also object method to string, but we use only to string from array prototype because it's higher on the chain of prototypes. If we don't have one, we go to the object and check if we have one or no. And What about classes? In recent ECMA 5 script, we have included a new keyword class, but it's different from our classes in our object-oriented languages like C# or C++. It's a little bit different because classes in JavaScript are templates for creating an object. We can encapsulate some data, we can work with it, but we are built on the same prototypes with some new syntaxes and semantics. We can easily override it with function.prototype or .method, etc., etc. But we are modern people and we need to use modern features of languages. So with this example, like how it works in code. And now I will show you how some principles implemented in JavaScript, and I will try to use a new class features to show you how it works. So firstly, first we have encapsulation. This example, I show you with code. I will discuss a closure. Closure is when how to be simple. Closure, it can give access to outer function fields in inner function or object. Like this example, we have inner object and outer function returns with object. And with variable full name, we closed in the scope of this function with variable, and we can only access it through methods in our object, like set full name, we can set the full name, and get full name, we can return full name, so we can get it. But if we directly access it through dot full name, we can do anything, we'll get an error. So this is encapsulation, some of the example. Later we have inheritance. So inheritance uses the keyword extends, like here in the base of a class person, I have a class worker that have same constructor and have new, you can implement the new method work, for example, but you have also have the method say, like in a person. And now polymorphism, like in our example, we have a class person and two classes based on it, it's worker and writer. So what's the difference? The difference is that we have same methods like say and like say, but the implementation is different. We in worker you say that it is worker, and writer says he is writing. It's different. You may refer as shapes of real world. For example, we have circle, we have triangle, we have squares, but it's all shapes. And all shapes has areas. For example, we have function area, but for different shapes, where our implementation of function area for triangle, for circle, for rectangle, etc., etc. So this is the meaning of the word polymorphism, like many forms. Like it's same but different form of it. And last, but not least, again, abstraction. Most abstraction is pretty easy to implement in language, but it's more concept or idea and not the implementation. For example, we use inherit. Oh, no, mistaken. We use interface. We define what we want in our code. For example, image category, we have only two fields, type and image. We not implement them. We say, I want in my work two fields. It's only type, it's only missing. In our things like outro, colors, etc., I don't need it. I only need for work two fields, and I use only two fields. And I force my program, my class or object, what inheritance with what uses with interface, only use two fields, not more, because I don't need in our implementations in these classes. And some conclusions. So we have implemented 4 different concepts, and these concepts, for example, encapsulation, we are implemented through classes, or no, encapsulation we are implemented through classes and for enclosures, and inheritance or polymorphism we express through also classes and also prototype inheritance or prototypes chains. Abstraction, we can use the interface to use abstraction in our code too. And I think
thank you.
all.
I have to interrupt you. We are running out of time, and we still need to have some question section. So please, Jory, maybe someone of you have some questions.
Yes, good work. I have a question. Did you have any experience of using classes in JavaScript?
Yes, I recent 3 projects I use class notation to use as elements of some code, for example, like containers of page, for example, garage in recent work. It have table, it have place, it have car, button, etc., etc. So some problems are. I have some problems because I have a lot of classes in my work.
Anyway, it's a good experience.
Yes, I think
good
it's
work.
a good experience. Okay.
The next one.
So
well,
I can.
hello?
Yeah, you can unshare the screen.
So there is like a pretty famous question, I believe. Why did you choose this topic?
It's all me, yes, or
what? Sorry.
I'm the answer, or who?
Of course,
yes, please.
It's for you, yes.
Because every time I have a question about OP, I use only mess up some of the concepts, and I want to study about it a little bit more to understand it more clearly and write it more clearly too. So I decided I want to practice a little bit for future interviews for.
Okay, so did you clarify it for yourself?
Yes.
Okay, and one more question. It's not about programming, it's about your personal experience. So did you study another language probably, or just English, or some more?
I currently studying in our language, but it's like more hobby than more consistent.
Sorry, what language?
I'm studying right now Japanese language, like.
Okay, and one more question. Did you have a lot of experience speaking English, or is your like first time speaking pub?
I have a lot of experience recently because I have university, I have school that have about eight classes of English, and in these classes we are usually public speaking sometimes.
Okay, I see, and I want to tell you that now you're speaking like much better, and I don't see the strong Russian accent that you had before while you were presenting your topic, and it's pretty weird, and I don't know why.
I'm a little bit nervous when I'm presenting something that's common to me.
Okay, so thank you.
Okay, so I can close my everything.
Yes, please. And our next speaker is Denise. And Denise, please share the screen so we can see your presentation.
Second. Do you see me and my presentation?
Yes, everything is okay.
Hello, my name is Denis. Presentation topic is MongoDB. What is MongoDB? MongoDB is a document based database management system. MongoDB, unlike many other databases, has no tables, schemas, SQL queries, or foreign keys. Let's drop deeper. Since the days of the dinosaurs, it has been common practice to store all data in relational databases. A few words about relational databases. A relational database is based on the relational data model. These digital databases are maintained by a relational database management system or RDBMS. Many relational database systems can use SQL, structured query language. Unlike relational databases, MongoDB offers a document-oriented data model, which makes it faster and more scalable. MongoDB and traditional databases have their own advantages and disadvantages. It is better to store data with complex structure in MongoDB. In other situations, it is better to use traditional relational databases. Alternatively, you can use a mixed approach, store one data type in MongoDB and type in traditional databases. The data format in MongoDB is similar to JSON, but JSON is not formally used. MongoDB used a format called BSON, or short for binary JSON. BSON allows you to work with data faster, but BSON, unlike JSON, has a small drawback. It takes up more space, but it pays off in speed. Here is the database device model in MongoDB. If in relational databases, their content is made up of tables, in MongoDB, the database is made up of collections. Every collection has its own unique name. Relational databases have strings and MongoDB has documents. Documents can store information that is complex in structure. A document can be thought of as a store of keys and values. It makes it much easier to work with MongoDB databases and their further scalability. It also saves developers time. This is how MongoDB and relational databases are similar. Relational DBMS have a primary key. Except MongoDB has document ID. And if you don't specify its value, then MongoDB will automatically generate a value for it. The ID must be unique. If we try to add a second document with the same ID to the collection, we will get an error. The slide shows an example of a document that is presented as an object that stores some information. This is similar to strings in relational DBMS, where information about an individual item is stored. A document represents a set of keys values pairs. For example, in the expression name John, name represents the key and John represents the value. As you can see, the keys represent strings and the value can differ in date time. In this case, almost all values also represent a strings type, and only one key company refers to a separate object. Unlike strings, documents can contain different information, so this contains an array. A couple more important notes in MongoDB: queries are case sensitive and strongly typed. That is, following two documents will not be identical. If in the first case a string is defined as a value for the key age, then in the second case, the value is a number. We can summarize that MongoDB is different from MySQL, easy to learn and works well in conjunction with JavaScript. Thanks.
Thank you. So please, Jory, maybe you have some questions for Denise.
Yes, Denise, a good work. I have a question. Did you use any other database or maybe like those you show in your presentation, MySQL?
Yes. Once to create authorization on the site.
On website?
Yes.
Did you prefer MongoDB to another databases? And if so, why?
I need time. I'm looking the what.
Did you use MongoDB? Maybe it's just you made it only presentation, but not use it.
I use it
MongoDB. You mean?
Yes.
Or what's the project it was where you use your MongoDB?
Doing the site. I may.
For the content, you mean?
Authorization.
For users.
Yes.
To store the users. Okay. Anybody else?
Can I ask? Thank you for presentation. The question is, what was your favorite task on Rolling Scope School during your education? Can you tell us a couple of words?
My
Maybe it was team task or you were alone. I don't know, something simple or maybe something with audio or some game probably. What was the best for you? What did you like to do?
My my English so bad.
Your favorite?
I don't looking right words.
I think maybe it is enough, and we can go to the next
Yeah,
presenter.
Denise, thank you
Thank
for
you
your
for
hard
your
work.
work.
Please share the screen so we can
Anyway,
proceed with the
it's
next.
good work.
So, guys, how are you? Did you see me?
Hello, we can see and hear you, but there are some noises in background.
What kind of noises?
Maybe some connection issues,
Maybe.
or maybe it's just me and my
I
connection
think
issues.
it's okay now.
Okay.
Okay. So let's start. So, hi everyone. Today I'm gonna dive to one topic that a lot of people are afraid of. It's about testing. So today I will explain the topic about testing in JavaScript. So an important part of afraid of, because it's maybe looks like more complex or maybe looks like unclear. So today I will talk about what is testing, why we test our code, and the types of tests, and of course how to test our code. So what works as planned without bugs. So what is why testing is important? First of all, building confidence in your code, that to know that your code works as to know that your code is working as planned. So the next is writing minimal code. After testing, your main goal is to write a minimal code to make the best tests. And this coding style where you write before write test before you write the actual implementation is also known as TDD. So the next is getting rid of. Click the button pay, and after that you are drawn to a main page and even log out. So of course it's improves your code. So let's move on to types of tests. There are 3 types of tests, and first is unit testing. So unit testing only tests a single part of your implementation without integration, without dependency. Unit tests course of code to ensure they run without problems. A tested unit can be a function, a model, a class, maybe. Unit tests should be isolated and independent of each other. For example, input. The unit test checks the result. Yes, it can help you make sure that the parts of your application work as well as planned. So the next is integration tests. Integration tests. Unit tests. Integration testing usually involves testing a particular functionality. So with integration tests, you can test connectivity and communication between function or class or component. So integration tests cover cross-module process where individual modules are combined and tested while working together. So the last one is end-to-end test. So end-to-end test is a big test. So end-to-end test is maybe it defines product system dependency and ensure all integrated piece of works as expected together. The point of end-to-end test is emulating an actual user within our running application. They will simulate behavior like scrolling, clicking, and typing, and check if your application works well as the point of view an actual user. So you see, unit testing is fully isolated. So, for example, it tests one component of one function. Integration tests with dependency, for example, function calling another function. Oops. Integration tests a full flow test, for example, validating inputs after clicking maybe button. So what about files? Maybe unit tests 1,000 of these, integration normal couple of these, and end-to-end tests it's a few couple of these. So let's move on to testing tools. There are many testing tools. So today I will talk about 4 testing tools. First, it's of course Jest. Our Jest is open source project, open source testing framework created by Facebook. With Jest, you can write tests, of course. So Jest makes it faster and easier to write JavaScript testing by having everything included out of the box. So the next is Protect. We have got Jest for developers, Protector for Zaire. For example, with Protector you can test any for Angular application in the real browser. So the next is Matcha. Matcha is a flexible JavaScript testing tool available to anyone to make. So it requires additional setup and some configurations. The last one is Cypress or Cypress. Cypress is the next generation Proton testing tool built for the modern application. With Cypress, developers write integration tests, end-to-end tests, and of course, unit tests. So let's write some code. Of course, let's write. For example, we write with unit testing. For example, create 2 files. Mass.js, or in Mass.js we write a file and export this function in Mass.js, and in Mass.js we write we import this function and write simple text. For example, of stream to be 6, for example. So let's write in terminal npm run start, and after that we get like this image in terminal. So let's write some code with integration tests. So let's create two files again. In component.js, we write two functions, which add function and total. The total function calls add function. So in components.js, we import two of these functions and write the test. For example, test add expect 1 to 2 to be 3, for example, and the total 5 to 20, it's to be 25. You see, the total function calls another function, so it's an integration test. So there are some matches you can see, and you should know or learn this. So this match can be also be negated using the not statement. For example, factorial of 3 is not to be 5, of course. So there are some useful sources. You can click and read official documentation. So thank you for your attention. That's it.
Thank you for your presentation. It was quite interesting, and I think that we can proceed with the questions. So please, jury. Maybe someone have a question? Guys? Okay. If we have no questions, maybe I have one.
Okay.
If you have a project and it's not covered by test, what would you do in this case?
Can you repeat, please?
Okay, if you have a project and it's not covered by tests fully, what would you do in this case? How should you start? Maybe from unit tests or maybe some other kind of tests? And is it possible?
It's a big project or it's normal?
Let's
If it's
say that
big,
it's rather
think,
big project.
yes,
yeah.
it's possible.
Huh.
Yes, of course we can. We start with unit testing after that, but we should have more time for testing. So we first write unit testing. After that, maybe integration testing. It's depends on project.
Okay, thank you. Maybe some other questions?
Yes, I have a question. Sorry, I have some problems with microphone. Could we write tests for asynchronous functions? And yes, if yes, how we can do it?
Yes, of course. Our test function takes two arguments. The first is name of the test, and the second one is a callback function, of course. And we can wrap these callback functions with async, or we can use then method for promises, of course. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and if we have no questions, I think we can stop sharing the screen, and if Alena is ready, we can proceed with the next presentation. Yeah,
Hello.
we
Sound
can
check?
see you, yes.
Okay. Okay, so can see me?
Everything's okay. I think
All right.
that you can
So,
start.
well, before my presentation starts, I'd like to notice that, well, there have been already 3 presentations on this topic, and it appears to be really popular. So I thought maybe it will be more interesting if the jury and all the viewers are already familiar with Scrum, if they watched presentations from yesterday and the day before. maybe it will be more interesting to me to go through some basics of Scrum and then just stop at some advantages and disadvantages, maybe have a bit of a discussion. Are you okay with this? I have some comments and don't know how to see them.
I think you can open the chat room, and if someone writes something here, you can see it.
Okay, so
I think you can continue.
What should I do? I can go through my prepared speech or just go through some basics and
Yeah,
we'll
let's
have some-
continue with your presentation.
Okay, Scrum, it's a term that borrowed from a rugby game. It's means the formation of players. So Scrum is basically all about the team and some being adaptive to for the team to work efficiently together, to be able to perform really at the best. So there are a lot of three principles of the Scrum: adaptation, inspection, and transparency. I hope you're already familiar with them. So I will stop just on the fact that adaptation is the main principle. It's Scrum is focused on this adaptation, and in order this to happen, the inspection is used. Inspection is more about some events that are commonly performed. We will talk about them a bit later. And the transparency principle is about the whole work to be transparent to each member of the team. So more about the team, it consists of a product owner, Scrum Master, and development team. Not to stop on this, developers, they develop. The important part of this is that the developers team should be not too big. Mainly, it's about 5 to 9 people. Product owner is a person who knows everything about the product and how to improve it in order to fulfill customers' needs. And well, his main job is to prioritize tasks in the backlog. And the Scrum Master, it's a person who implements Scrum and sees and looks after all the events and all these principles I've mentioned before to be used in the company. So we'll stop a little on a Scrum process. It is cycled. It consists mainly of sprints. Sprint is some duration of time that is well, people decide before starting using Scrum which time is determined for a sprint. It's mainly 1 to 4 weeks. Well, one is used rarely because it's for some specific projects. Before sprint, sprint planning is held, and after sprint, there's a sprint review and sprint retrospective. So basically, sprint review is about product. The product, some functionality is tested, and feedback is contained. And sprint retrospective is about the performance of the team, of Scrum team, and all about how to improve work in future, how to avoid some mistakes, and to probably appreciate some small victories that were made during sprint. I'm sorry, something went wrong. Can go further in my presentation. Okay, well, probably we'll start without presentation. No, okay, almost. Well, now I will tell about a little about some advantages and disadvantages of Scrum. It's very popular nowadays, and well, the good stuff about Scrum is that it is client oriented because it's adaptive, it's flexible, it can fulfill customers' needs because after the sprint, some changes could be implemented in functionality. Also, it's really cool that the developers team is well, it's a self-organized unit. It controls itself. So also it shares the responsibility. It's great because well, all team members, they know everything about the product. They know what is going on, what difficulties other people faced in the in the team. The presentation is back. Okay. Also, it's great because, well, mainly in the developers team, there is a manager. This manager also has the whole responsibility. He spreads the tasks among team. This can be bad because, well, in the case when this manager go to vacation or get sick or well, got fired, the team can stop working because no one will know what to do. And in this case, when the team is self-organized and doesn't need some outside control, everything will work exactly as it should be. But on the other hand, this self-organization can be bad because, well, there are higher demands for hiring some team members. In my opinion, I don't think that there can be any juniors in such team, maybe one, because, well, you see, the developers team, it consists of, well, for about five people. So it's like two types of developers, like two front ends, two back ends, maybe one QA. And if there will be half of this team will be juniors, no one will be able to well, fulfill the needs of Scrum, fulfill the needs of Sprint, and be able to implement the needed functionality. I guess well, there should be some seniors or maybe middle developers for this. Well, also the people should be really into the product because they will have to foresee some future, foresee some problems, and be able to or either prevent them or to manage them. That's also not for everybody because that's some, well, mainly it's about the thing like you don't have a manager, but this manager responsibility is spread among all the members. So each developer should be a little bit of a manager. Also, well, Scrum is originally developed for one team. So mostly companies, they customize Scrum. They use some their own implementation of Scrum with some differences, and it can have some troubles. Well, for example, the company decided to hire more people, more than 5, like for about 10 people. Then there's an event called daily meetings. Originally, they are held like 15 minutes, but if there are 10 people in the team, then these daily meetings will be held much longer, and you can't stay focused that long, and no one will be able to share really their problems or their some needs they have.
Okay, thank you. I have to interrupt you because we're running out of time.
Okay.
And I think that we should move to questions.
Okay.
And I think our jury has some interesting questions about Scrum.
Yes, I have a couple of questions. Scrum versus other technologies. Could you give us some examples of those technologies, please?
I'm sorry, what technologies are you talking about? Can you give me an example, please?
Could you please give us examples of other technologies, not Scrum, but Scrum
yes.
versus other technologies?
Yes, sure. Well, originally Scrum is a part of Agile system, and usually Scrum is used against Kanban. So Kanban, well, when Scrum is has some determined amount of events that are held regularly, like in the same time, in Kanban, there are probably the same events, but they are held if they held. And when they held is not determined. So there can be several sprints in Kanban, for example, and there won't be any reviewing or retrospective. So as a disadvantage of Scrum, of a Kanban, I could name that you can collect the feedback and think of some things you can prevent, how you can prevent problems in just a very long time, like in half a year.
Thank you very much.
Hello, thank you for presentation. It was really interesting. I have a question. Do you know, probably, is it possible to use Scrum in the world of remote working companies?
Yes, sure. Yeah, sure, why not? Well, every meetings like our presentation right now can be held via some Zoom or Scrum or sorry, or Skype. So these daily meetings will be held, and all the events will be held as well.
What can you tell me about, I know that Scrum use kind of desk with some papers on it, basically. But what about this online forums? Do you know how to use it online?
Yes, sure. Well, I should say that I don't think that every company that uses Scrum or Kanban uses these desks, like literally. Probably all the work now in nowadays is more in the internet. So there are a lot of platforms that help you to use these desks online. So you can share it, and well, answering your previous question, the same. You can use, as well as holding meetings, you can use some desks online.
Can you tell me some names, probably?
Well, I'm not sure, but from out of my head, there are some, like Notion, maybe. I'm not sure, I haven't used them, so I don't know.
But anyway, I think you're right. Notion is very good for it also. And one more question, a little one. Can you give me example if we can use the Scrum except of IT companies and games?
Yeah, well, I'm sure that you can use in a lot of companies Scrum, but you should see some specific work. I'm sorry. Probably with some small teams, and where well, the most important part is that the team should be able to implement some, I don't know, product or functionality or some service in a certain amount of time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, and our next presentation is about video API, and I think Dmitry can share the screen if he's ready. He's with us.
Hi, yes, I'm ready.
Okay, thank you. You can start.
Hi, everyone. Now I will tell you about the API video. HTML5 has given you the ability to embed multimedia materials into a page, such as video and audio. Each of them has its own API for controlling playback, search, and other. And now I will tell you about API video in more detail. I'm sorry, not turn on my camera. Oh, one second.
Yeah, we can see it, but it's over your presentation, so it's it's okay now. Thank you.
And so let's look at an example of typical implementation of inserting video elements into a page. Here we can see the video tag in which the video is inserting in two formats. The web format is the most preferred for Google Wikimedia. For example, YouTube used the web format. And we also the p tag, which will be displayed if the user browser does not support the video API. Here we can see our media elements looks in modern browsers. It should also be noted that it has a control tag allow to display the video control. And in this implementation, we see how the player will look without controls. This happens when no control text is added. But we can also customize our media elements and style its elements as we wish. And also we can control it using JavaScript. Let's now look at how we can do this in more detail. In this image, you can see what we get at the end. Here we add the already familiar video tag. We also add a div tag, which contains controls such as stop, play, and elements that show the current playing time of the video. Well, here set the style for the element as we wish. I think that is not worth dwelling here in detail. Well, here we can see this now the control of the element through JavaScript look like. With the play element, which is our play and stop button, to which we add a click event listener, write a function that describe the click algorithm. I would like to highlight here the major control properties such as play and pause, and we will consider other properties further. We need to know that there are a lot of properties, and they are all common to audio and video elements. Let's take a look at some of them. The autoplay property allows users to play the video after loading the page. If it is not set, then the video will not start playing. We have already considered the control property, but we needed to remember that is one of the most important. The current time property allows you to set the current playback time of the media item. It is set in seconds. The default mute property allows you to mute the sound by default. The end property show use when the video is finished playing. The error property allow use to catch errors during video playback. The volume property allow use to set the playback volume. The duration time property return use the length of the video in seconds. I hope you were interested. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you for your work. And what about browser support? Is this API supported in all browsers, or maybe there are some limitations?
Sorry, can you repeat your question?
Yeah, can you please tell about browser support
Yes.
of API? Yeah.
Yeah. Most browser have video API support. The future is that they may look different in each browser. In addition, the built-in controls in most browsers are not very keyboard accessible.
Okay, so on mobile devices, the controls will be native, I think, yes?
No, on mobile devices, on mobile autoplay, yeah, mobile device supported video API. Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe we have some other questions from jury.
Yes, I have a question. About the autoplay policy, could you tell something?
Yes, the autoplay policy look like this. Autoplay which muted is always enabled. Autoplay with sound is allowed if the user has previously made a gesture which the site. Click it, touch it, and other.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there is no other questions, we can go next. And we have one more presentation about MongoDB. And I think if Svetlana is ready, she can share the screen and start the presentation.
Just a minute.
Svetlana, could you please turn the video on?
Yes.
Thank
Trying
you.
to find how can I do this.
Oh,
Can you see
it's
me?
okay. Yes, it's okay now. Thank you.
So here is my presentation about MongoDB. Let's start. First of all, I need to say that MongoDB is a NoSQL database with the next characteristics. NoSQL databases store data as nested objects. The second is that it's a schema-less database, and the data is not structured in a specific way, and there are no tables. And it also doesn't support joins, and you cannot join data tables like you can in SQL. Here you can see differences between relational databases and MongoDB, and let's talk about them in more details. MongoDB uses collections instead of tables. Collections is merely an array of documents, while documents are basically objects with properties. In turn, documents can have collections as their properties. Tables in relational databases store the same type of rigidly structured objects, and collections can contain a variety of objects with a different structure and a different set of properties. Also, instead of strings, MongoDB works with documents. A document is a set of key-value pairs, and unlike strings, documents can store information that is complex in structure. And also, documents have a dynamic schema. That means that the documents in the same collection don't have the same set of fields or structure, and common fields in documents of same collection may hold different types of data. I also should say that one thing brings MongoDB and relational databases closer together. In relational databases, there's such a thing as primary key, which is just a column in the table that has unique values. MongoDB has unique identifier for each document called ID, and if a user doesn't specify a value for it, then MongoDB will automatically generate a value. Here you can see an example of MongoDB document. It's a student card, and I want to pay your attention that it has a structure of an object, and at the same time has a collection as a property. I mean this field courses. So what are the advantages of MongoDB? First of all, it's a cross-platform database because it's written in C++, so it can be deployed on Windows, Linux, and other platforms. It's also easy to use. In relational databases, the database structure, changing the database structure can be a huge problem, and especially when there is a lot of data. MongoDB could greatly simplify this process and make it so easy that you can just update the schema on the fly and move on quickly, and prevent wasting time for rebuilding of database and for writing complex queries. So MongoDB helps to save developers time. It's also MongoDB especially useful for cases where data is very poorly structured, and it's enough difficult to store this data in the form of table. So this database without a scheme is the best choice for these cases. As I said, always MongoDB has no complex joins because they don't need to be used. And at the same time, MongoDB has own document-based query language, which is nearly as powerful as SQL. I need to say also about data format in MongoDB. It's JSON. And JSON allows you to work with data faster searches and processing. Also, it should be noted that JSON has a small drawback comparing with JSON, because data is in JSON takes up less space less space than BSON format. But BSON format, as I said, is more speed. Also, one of the challenges with any database is storing large data. Some databases offer special data types for storing binary data in databases, like blob in MySQL. Unlike relational databases, MongoDB allows you to save various documents with different data sets, but document size is limited to 16 megabytes. For this, MongoDB have a solution, a special GridFS technology that allows you to store data larger than the grid system consists of two collections. One of them store files, file names, and metadata like size, and another collection called chunks store file data in small chunks, usually in 256 kilobyte chunks. Also, I need to say about some disadvantages of this database. First of all, the lack of ability to enforce that data structure. On one hand, strong schemas can sometimes be a big problem, but it's also a powerful mechanism for structuring data. Document databases like MongoDB provide incredible flexibility, but it moves the responsibility for keeping data clean to developers, and this can be enough hard work. Also, own query language can be considered as a disadvantage because, especially for developers who have experience with SQL, because SQL is an incredibly powerful language, and there is a universe of different tools that interact with SQL databases, and moving to database that doesn't support SQL means that you can't use most of these tools, or you have to convert data into SQL in order to use it. That can be rather hard. In conclusion, I would like to note that today MongoDB closes the top 5 most popular databases, and the frequency of using this database annually increases. That's all.
Thank you for your work. And Jury, please, you can ask some questions.
Yes, I have a question about the indexes. Does MongoDB support indexes? And why it is needed if yes?
As I said, MongoDB use IDs, and so you can get your data just using this unique ID.
What about indexes?
I think I can answer this question.
Okay, and the second question is, what is cursor in MongoDB and how it is used?
It's very hard questions for me. Because I don't have any experience with this database, I only used MariaDB, and this is an SQL database. So I think it's a chance for me, maybe in my next task with English for Kids, to use this MongoDB database.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for your presentation. One more question. Why did you choose this topic if you never used it? So
I chosen it because I thought that it will be useful for me that I will meet it in my work, and it's a good chance to get know about new technology.
And so did you like this database? So you want to use it once, or just for a job, for example? I don't know.
Yes, I would like to, but first I made information, only good information about this database. And when I read a little more, I found disadvantages of using this database. So as I think that before making decision to use it, it's necessary to make an analysis of benefits and compromises that using these databases that we will receive using these databases.
Okay, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Vladimir, you can start your presentation and let's learn something new about network protocols.
Yes,
Please
can you
share
hear
the
me?
screen.
I can't demonstrate screen
Svetlana,
because
can
the
you
other user.
stop sharing the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Светлана.
Да, я пытаюсь это сделать. По-моему, я сделала не то.
At the top of the screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see browser
Everything's
page?
okay. Yep.
Okay, my topic of my presentation is what HTTP and HTTPS. So what is HTTP? HTTP is a hypertext transfer protocol, is an application protocol for distributed collaborative hypermedia information systems. HTTP is a foundation of data communication for the World Wide Web. What we need to know about HTTP? It's an application layer protocol. It follows classical server model, client-server model. It's a TCP/IP based communication protocol. By default, it uses port 80. In common use, its version is HTTP 1.1. And in May 2015, HTTP 2 was published, but we talk about it later. HTTP is used to transmit resources. Resources is some chunk of information that can be identified by the URL. The most common kind of resources is a file, but a resource also may be a dynamically generated query result or output of CGI script or some multi-language document or maybe a webcam gateway or some e-commerce gateway. Anything you can imagine to be a resource in internet is HTTP resources. URL is a uniform resource locator. Here is an example of a URL. It consists of protocol, for example, HTTP, host is ports, and some additional information. For example, path, if you want to search some image on Google.com, and query information. As usual, query information is a GET request, which, for example, search, and after a question character, we send some additional information what we want to search. As I said, we send request, GET request, and the server answered our request, and it's called transaction. And it consists of 4 phases. The client established TCP connection, then it sends a request and wait for its answer. Server processes the request and sends back its answer containing status code and appropriation data. And then connection is closed. Since one was used, connection stay opened. Every request command have its method. HTTP has its methods for example, get, head, post, put, delete, option, no, and other. But in fact, we have only 4 basic and familiar CRUD operations: create, get, update, and delete. And I think everyone knows it, and we don't need to stop here. Every request has its status code. There are 5 types of request status codes, response status code. 100 for informational, 200 for success, 300 redirection, and 2 types for errors. 400 for client errors. I think everybody see, for example, 400 false error not found, or some server error, for example, 500 internal server error. And now let's talk about HTTPS. Also, it's called HTTP over TLS, HTTP over SSL, or simple HTTP secure. It's a protocol for secure communication over a computer network, which is widely used on the internet. Of communication over hypertext transfer protocol, which is a connection encrypted by TLS or SSL. It's often used in cases of login, registrations, or payment, because its sensitive information should be protected. SSL stands for Secure Socket Layer. It's a technology platform that uses HTTP protocol to ensure content encrypted secure HTTP. Technology security standards globally create a link encrypted between the browser and the web server. And we may be sure that our data passed between the server and the browser is private separated. What is the difference between HTTP and HTTPS? First of all, its URLs start with HTTPS and HTTP. HTTPS by default use port 4043, and HTTP use port 80. HTTP is not encrypted, and it's vulnerable to man-in the middle and eavesdropping the text, which can let attackers website accounts on server or some sensitive information, or they can modify web pages to inject some malware or environments. Also, deploying HTTPS allows us to use HTTP2. There's a new generation, as I told, it was published in 2015, and it's designed to reduce page load times and latency. And the question how to work with HTTPS. Should we load some plugins or some scripts? The answer is no, because web browsers know how to trust HTTPS websites based on certificate authorities that came pre-installed in their software. Certificate authorities such as Symantec, Comodo, GoDaddy, and others is the way being trusted by web browser creators. And for example, here we see Apple.com. And we can see information about its certificates. Here we see a Symantec SSL certificate in the information that it's valid. And also we see that connection encrypted by TLS version 1.2. In the beginning, I talked about application layer. And this is because HTTP operates the highest level of TCP IP model, and this layer is application. That means that HTTP encrypted by SSL and TLS, and it encrypts prior to transmission and decrypt the message upon arrival. HTTPS is not separate protocol, but refers to use an ordinary HTTP or encrypted SLS and TLS connection. In human language, it means that our browser, after we send in a request and before establish connection, browser asks server, let's set up a secure SLS section, and the server answer okay, and sends its certificates and checks the validity. If everything is okay, our browser sends encryption key for a session, one-time key, and server get decryption key. After that, we have secure connection, and everything in HTTP message is encrypted, including headers and the request response slot. The attackers can only know that a connection is taking place between the two parties and the domain name and the IP addresses. But they, for example, since Google.com use HTTPS, nobody can know what you're searching on Google.com. Thank you. That's all.
Thank you. It was an interesting presentation. And I have maybe the simple question about the requests. Can we use a GET request to send some data?
Set data?
Send data with a GET request. Or is it impossible?
GET request only gets data from server. For send some data, we use post or some other request, for example, create or update.
Okay, and what do you think is the difference between GET and POST requests in general?
GET and POST request in general?
Yeah.
GET request, get data, POST request, send data.
Okay. Actually, there is no big difference between them, and you can post some data with a GET request. For example, you can use a query params, and the POST request can have a body, and that's the only difference between them. But it's okay. Maybe we have some other questions.
Yes, I have one. What will be the next generation of HTTP? What do you
as I know, next generation should be HTTP 3. It's not published officially yet, but since 2020, it was supported by Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, and since this year, it's supported by Mozilla Firefox.
Okay, thank you.
Any questions?
Thank you. I think that we have no more questions.
Okay.
And let's switch to the next presentation about the Shadow DOM.
Yeah, I'm here. Do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you, but we cannot see your screen.
Right now? Do you see?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay. Let's talk. Hi everyone. Today I'm going to tell you about the Shadow DOM, what is it and how to use it correctly. The main question, what is the Shadow DOM? Shadow DOM is the tool used to build component-based apps and websites. Comes in small pieces and it doesn't represent the whole document object model. Shadow DOM structure. Shadow DOM can be imaged like bricks from which the DOM is created. In the case of Shadow DOM, we create a scope tree, which is connected to the element, but separate children elements. It's called shadow tree, and element is attached is called shadow post. And here we go to the main advantage of the Shadow DOM. Everything which we will add to the shadow tree is local, even stylus. Have you ever thought about how complex browser controls are created in stylus? For example, input type range. Shadow DOM structure is normally hidden from us, but we make sure about it. If we inspect this element, we see input like this. But if I go to the settings and find Shadow DOM and select him after close the settings, we see input like this with shadow root and elements below. So structure is normally hidden from us, but we can see it developer tools. We need to enable DevTools show user agent Shadow DOM option. In the example above, we saw attribute pseudo. It's a non-standard attribute, but exists for historical reason. We can use it, for example, for changing some styles. And now we are going to change background. So we can see that background is red. Okay, let's talk about DOM subtrees. A DOM element can have two types of DOM subtrees. It's a light tree, a regular DOM subtree made of HTML children, and shadow tree, hidden DOM subtree, not reflected in HTML, and hidden from prying eyes. The main difference between light DOM and shadow DOM is how it's created and how it behaves. So the lightweight DOM node we create a nested within other elements like tree, regular tree as we used to use in, and shadow DOM serves for encapsulation, and it allows to have open space to hidden from prying eyes some stylus and more. So how to create shadow DOM? For instance, we see regular HTML document. In the top, we see a text style and selector H1 with color green, but it's still commented out. H1, which was created in a regular HTML document. This text I belong to light DOM. And in the script tag, we are going to create shadow DOM. For this, we create element div, and for this element, use method attach shadow with mode open. And this method, this element returned by ordinary element, and we can use different methods which is available from, for example, in this case, we use inner HTML with content H1 tag and text I belong to shadow DOM. And after we need to append the child to container. So output will be like this. We see two sentences, and I want to know that first sentence was created by ordinary HTML document, and second was created using shadow DOM. So modes have two options open. The shadow root is available as element shadow root and closed. The element shadow root is always null. So if I call this alert with two compares, element shadow root host and element, always we get the truth. So in the next step, I uncommented H1's vector, and we see that first sentence had been changed, their color, and it's time to do first conclusion that global styles don't impact to element which we create using shadow root, shadow DOM. So the next step, I'm going to select all H1s, and we're going to print length. And we're going to print text content of the first element of the result. And output will be like this. We see that length returned 1, and text I belong to light DOM. And the next step, I'm going to do the same, but query from no documents, but element shadow root, length, and text contents. And we see that returned 1, and returned I belong to shadow DOM. So it's that's why that if we want to find and query some elements, we need to do it internally of this tree. Some elements. Using shadow, I create custom elements. For instance, show hello, we need to extend from HTML element and actually do the same, and output will be like this. We see the tag show hello, its attribute name and elements below shadow root hello. When we use Shadow DOM, we need to remember some rules, and we can create only one shadow root per element. Element must be either a custom elements for one of these tags, for example, article, site, body, div, and etc. But image can't host shadow tree. The style from the document doesn't affect the shadow tree, but the style from the inside works. To get elements in the shadow tree, we must query from inside the tree. When we use different technologies, it's best practice when we check whether this technology is supported by different browsers. If we look on this slide, we see that most of popular browsers are supported, except Internet Explorer or Termini. So be careful with it. My presentation is coming to end, and it's time to do some conclusions. Shadow DOM is way to create a component locked to DOM. Shadow root element attached shadow with mode open or closed creates shadow DOM for element. If mode open, then it's accessible as element shadow root property. We can populate shadow root using inner HTML or other DOM methods. Shadow DOM elements have their own space. It helps with the scoping of the CSS, which means styles created inside the single Shadow DOM element are isolated and stays in the scope of the Shadow DOM. We can sync with the application as it's built from chunks. Thank you for your attention. I have finished.
Okay, thank you for your work and for your presentation. By the way, cool office you're working, and maybe we have some questions from jury.
Hi. I'd like to ask a question. What are the pros and the cons of Shadow DOM?
Okay, I can say that it's encapsulation from global styles. For example, some companies want to protect their products. For example, if this product is widget, and we add this widget for our website, so we must protect from our global styles. If we do option closed, for example, we can ensure that others, developers, for example, and stylists for JavaScript code is not available and it's not accidentally accessed for these elements, and we can make sure that everything is okay, and stylists in this product has initial state like from companies.
Okay, thank you. I've got no more questions.
Thank you. Maybe someone else have questions? If no, then we can proceed, and then we have a topic that fits well with the previous talk about Scrum. And Larissa, if you're here, you can start your presentation. Please share your screen and please show up. I think that you should set some permissions in your browser to share video and your sound, because we can't hear you. No, we can't hear you. Probably you should check your browser permissions. You don't have permissions to share sound and video. You can set up your browser. Maybe we should try to switch to the next presentations if Grigori is ready, and just
if we need, we can do.
Oh, okay. If you're ready, let's start.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Demonstrate.
Yeah.
No problem. So, is my sound okay?
The sound is okay, and the presentation is okay, and we can see you. Everything is okay.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Glad to see you. Today I will tell you about Angular, its features, use cases, main components, advantages and disadvantages of this technology. So first of all, sorry. Let's click. First of all, what is Angular? Angular is a development platform built on TypeScript. With Angular, you take advantage of a platform that can scale from single developer projects to enterprise level applications. Angular is designed to make updating as easy as possible, so you can take advantage of the latest developments with a minimum of effort. Best of all, the Angular ecosystem consists of a diverse group of over 1.7 million library authors and content creators. As a platform, Angular includes a component-based framework for building scalable web applications, a collection of well-integrated libraries that cover a wide variety of features, including routing, forms management, client-server, communication, and more, and a suite of developer tools to help you develop, build, and test, and of course, update your code. There are some basic components in Angular. They are components, templates, modules, and dependency injection. Let's analyze each in more detail. The first one is component. Components are the building application. A component includes a TypeScript class with decorator, an HTML template, and styles. The decorator specifies the following Angular specific information, such as a CSS selector that defines how the component is used in the template, HTML element in your template that can match this selector to become instance of the component, and HTML template that instructs Angular how to render the component, and an optional set of CSS styles that define the appearance of the template's HTML elements. So let's see the simple example of Angular component. To use this component, you shall write this template, and when Angular renders this component, the result in DOM looks like this. Components contain metadata, so the metadata for component tells Angular where to get the measure built-in blocks that it needs to create and present the component and its view. In particular, it associates a template with the component, either directly with line code or by reference. Together, the component and its template describe the view. The next part is template. Every component has a template that declares how to component renders. You define this template either in line or by path. Angular extends this additional syntax that lets you insert dynamic values of your components. Angular automatically updates your rendered DOM when your component's state change. So we have, for example, task to insert a dynamic text into this template. The value for message comes from the component class, and when the application loads and components load the components and its template, we can see this message. The next part is Angular models or NG models. Angular applications are modular, and Angular has its own modularity system called NG models. NG models are containers for a recursive block of code dedicated to an application domain, a workflow, or a closely related set of capabilities. They can contain component service providers, and other code files whose scope is defined by the contained NG model. They can import functionality that is exported from the other NG models and export selected functionality for use by other NG models. Every Angular application has at least one NG model class, the root model. And while a small application might have only one NG model, most applications have many more feature models. The root NG model for an application is so called because it can include child models in a hierarchy of any depth. The next main part is dependency injection. Dependency injection allows you to declare the dependencies of your TypeScript classes without taking care of the instantiation. Instead, Angular handles the instantiation for you. The design pattern allows you to write more testable and flexible code, even though understanding dependency injection is not critical to start using Angular. So we can see the example. In this file, we have function which logs a number to the console, and the next file contains an Angular component. This component contains that function and of the logger class. To access that function, the logger service is injected into Hello World dependency injector component to this constructor by this private field logger. So the next part is Angular view. To get the component and template defined an Angular view, a decorator on the component class adds a metadata including a pointer to associated template directives and binding markup that modify views based on program data and logic. The dependency injector provides services to components such as router service that lets you define navigation among views. So Angular has its advantages and disadvantages. So advantages are as follow. First one is component-based architecture that provides a high quality of code. Angular means better tooling, cleaner code, and higher scalability. Angular includes RxJS library that means efficient and asynchronous programming. Angular has its own directives. Angular offer to us high performance, and disadvantages are the next. Angular is verbose and complex, steep learning curve, and migrating the legacy system from AngularJS to Angular requires time. So here you can see the link where you can read about Angular, and because I have time limits and I don't tell you about all Angular features, and you can check it by yourself. So that's all. Thanks for your attention, and maybe any questions.
Yes, thank you, Grigory, for your presentation. And have you already worked with Angular?
No, I don't, but I plan to study it in my close future.
Okay, great. And perhaps you heard something about Angular CLI?
Angular CLI is a group of tools, as I know.
Yeah, and maybe you can tell us what is good about it and what actors can be created with it. I mean, some Angular actors, like some components or something like that.
Don't have experience of work with Angular, so maybe I can't answer on this question.
Okay, actually everything can be created with Angular CLI, so it's rather handy way to create all this stuff. Okay, maybe we have some other questions. Guys.
Hi, I've got a question. Yes, what are the advantages of Angular?
As I said, the advantages is that Angular built on TypeScript, so tooling, cleaner code, and higher scalability. Angular has its own directives, and Angular offers us high performance. And when we use Angular, our code became more cleaner, I think, and the quality of our code is high.
And what about disadvantages?
And disadvantages is that Angular is pretty hard for beginners like me. And maybe it is the main disadvantage of this technology.
Okay, I see. Thank you. I've got no more questions.
Thank you.
Hi, I have a question.
Okay.
You told us that Angular is a front-end framework. Please tell me what is the difference and library?
In my mind, framework is a group of these libraries, and first of all, framework is a new development environment, but library is just a program model that, which can you import to your current project and use. Framework is a group of these libraries and other tools. That's it.
Thank you. Got it.
Maybe any more questions?
I think that's it. And thank you again.
Thank you.
You can
Thank you.
unshare your screen. And Larissa, did you manage to beat the technical difficulties? Maybe.
I believe that now you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. One minute, please. Do you see my presentation?
Yeah.
Okay, so
and maybe yes, you can share the video.
And
Everything
you
is
see
okay.
me? Okay, let's start. So hello everyone, my name is Larissa, and today I will tell you about Jira software. So first of all, we should understand what is Jira. Jira software is part of a family of products designed to help teams of all types manage work. Originally, Jira was designed as a bug and issue tracker, but today Jira was involved into a powerful work management tool for all kinds of use cases, from requirements and test case management to agile software development. Jira software provides how Jira can help developers with their projects. We need to understand what is Scrum and Kanban principles. Sorry. Scrum and Kanban are popular frameworks for implementing agile practices in teams. So simple boards, as you can see, have columns for to do, ongoing, and done. Also, I should say that the board can be supplemented with your own columns. So as this picture, you can see the difference between Scrum and Kanban board. Your to-do list doesn't change. No restrictions to the number of ongoing items. Also, when all work is done, to-do and ongoing list should be empty. And when you work with a Kanban board, you have flexible to-do and ongoing lists, and no more than 2 items in the queue. But you should remember that these principles have the main similarity. There are systems of visualizing work and limiting work in progress to achieve high levels of productivity. Also, they emphasize open communication, teamwork, and a trial and error approach to problem solving. So I hope you understand. And we can move on the next question. What is Jira used for? Various kinds of Kanban and Scrum tools can be adapted to any type of planning and management for personal or team. But Jira was created for programmers, and that's why every aspect was considered according to the needs of the developers. Jira software can be used for the following purposes. Here you can see requirements and test case management in agile methodology, project management, product and task management, software development, and bug tracking. So our next question is how to create an issue in Jira. You should understand that here issue is not like a problem, it's like a task. And the issue is a unit of information. It contains either some function that needs to be implemented or a bug that needs to be fixed. Issues are the building blocks of a project and a sprint. Also, the issue list forms their workflow. Of course, before creating an issue, you will open Jira software and create your own project, and only then you will create an issue. But you should understand that learning how to create an issue, understanding how to work with Jira in general, that's why I will show you how to do it. There are 2 ways to create a new issue in Jira. First way, you should choose project and then click create button. And the second way, create issue button in the column of the Kanban board and then write name of the task and only then write additional attributes. On this slide, you can see a creation issue form. There are the main attributes like project, issue type, summary, priority, and etc. And also there are some other attributes like description, label, sprint, and others. So you will see all of them if you will work with Jira. Now let's take a look at the main components of Jira. Jira's interface is divided into several key tabs, as you can see. The project tabs contains all the Kanban and Scrum boards that you can view or edit. Also, in fact, this is the main workspace, I can say. Here you can also switch to the product release tracking mode, look at all active sprints, analyze progress reports, and you can do other actions. But first things go first. Roadmap. In this section, you can create goals and plan the team's work in advance. Here, the epic is the key piece of information here. This is a consolidation of a large number of issues related to each other. The roadmap clearly shows the company's far-reaching plans and visually arranged in a kind of horizontal calendar. Then plugins. Jira can be made even more functional if we will connect some other plugins. Some of them are promoted by Atlassian. For example, integration with Git systems. Team leaders have the opportunity to see not only progress as a set of changing active issues, but also to see the real changes in the code. Developers can push each command to Jira, and other teams members can see changes from, for example, GitHub in Jira. In the collection of plugins, you can find tools for creating diagrams, a more convenient visual presentation of their work schedule, and others plugins. Next is Pages, another Atlassian development in the Confluence project. This is something that looks like Google Docs, but it works in Jira and has less functionality. It's an online Word editor with basic tools for formatting what developer write. Confluence is all about creating an additional and convenient place where team leads and developers can communicate. Next, dashboard. I think that it's an incredible section because dashboard shows a lot. It can be reports, it can be statistics of comments, a list of performed tasks, analytical data, diagrams, graphs, and so on. Anything that can be useful for analysts of the company and business in general. Also, I should mention that in general, in Jira, you can generate dashboards automatically. Releases. In this section, you can create various of programs, indicate the release date, and assign to them different fix the bugs, new functions, and issue included in a specific release. Here you can see which version of the product should be released in the near future, which ones have already been released, and etc. All in all, this is another convenient way to plan and track work in progress. Our last section is reports. In the report section, you can see the automatically generated progress reports for types of reports available to Jira's users, like burn-up reports that visualize as sprints completed work and compare it with its total scope. Also, sprint burn-down chart that track and manage the total work remaining within a sprint. The third is velocity report that predicts the amount of work your team can commit to in future sprints by seeing and reviewing the amount of value delivered in previous ones. And also cumulative flow diagram that shows the statuses of your projects issues over time. So you should understand that I didn't tell you about all Jira section, but only about general. Our last question is how to improve your work with Jira. First of all, you should divide big tasks into small ones. Then leave comments on tasks, write down all the actions that you performed, then plan sprints, and take notes on a regular basis. So the basic acquaintance is over. Now you know how to work with Jira. And it's not hard to get comfortable with this platform. It's much harder to get into Agile and Kanban. So that's why you need to learn more about these principles, and only then work with Jira, and your work with Jira will be more clear. So that's all. Thanks for watching. Any questions?
Thank you for your presentations. And I have no questions. Maybe someone from jury.
I've got a question. Hi, thank you for presentation. It was really great. I really enjoyed. And my question is the first, do you personally work with Jira?
No, I have never been worked with Jira, but I should say that I worked with the similar application that called Trello. I use it in my university. That's why Jira. That's why I chosen Jira for this presentation, because I want to know more about IT sphere, exactly what application do developers use.
Okay, thank you. And the second question is, what are the analogs of Jira? Are there analogs? And maybe can you name some of them?
Analogs? What is analogs?
Analogs, that means that the software that has the same maybe functionality, or some other IT companies.
Alternative soft, yes?
Yes, alternative soft.
As I said, it can be Trello, for example, but it's not for only for developers. But Jira, the main advantage of Jira, I think that it was created only for developers. That's why all functionality here very useful only for developers. So, but I used only Trello. That's why I don't know what other software can be similar to Jira.
Okay, thank you. I've got no more questions.
I have a question. How do you think, is Jira easy to learn or no?
I think maybe in your first try it will be not easy. But as I said, first of all, you should understand the principles of applications like Jira, and only then you should work with these applications. And I think it's not hard.
Okay, thanks.
Any
questions?
I have
So
one
I think okay.
Do you know why Jira called Jira?
Can you repeat?
It's a joke, sorry. We're just joking that Jira is Jira because it's жирная. Because this Jira has a lot of functionality, and sometimes it make all of this functionality make it slow.
Okay, I will know.
Is it all? presentations?
Do we have anyone the bonus slot here and give us presentations right now, guys? If no,
Thank you,
that's
Larissa.
it. Yeah.
A good presentation. Good luck.
Thank you.
Okay, can I stop recording?
Yeah, if we have no other candidates, thanks for all your presentations and for all your work. It was great to learn all these new things.
Thank you for everybody.